Hey, what's up, guys? This is Joey Langenbrunner with Perpetual. I work alongside Benjamin, who you've seen in prior videos. You'll be seeing me in more videos in the future. Before we get into the content, I just wanted to do a quick introduction on me. So I've been working in this industry for about 8 years now, helping people with getting second passports, second residencies, helping to optimize taxes, and really just a holistic plan. I am born and raised in the US, but I have lived overseas. My favorite country living overseas was actually Portugal, but I've been to 50 plus countries. So, being American, I can kind of speak on why time is running out for Americans here. So let's get right into it. We got to focus on the trends here. When I travel overseas, I am always coming across American expats. So we have over 9 million Americans who are living overseas, and you'll find Americans in Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Spain, Greece, Germany, the UK, China, lots in Japan, Australia. You'll find us Americans all over the world. And especially since 2020, and part of the reason was because of COVID, but there's been a huge increase in Americans who have lived overseas. And actually, that was about the year where I spent a few years overseas. And which is also crazy is that, if you're American, you'll know this. And if you're not American, you might not know this, but Americans have to pay taxes worldwide. So that essentially means that me as American, if I'm living in Spain or Mexico or Colombia, I will still have to file taxes inside the US. So because of that, or various other reasons, people always have their reasons why, there's been a 10% increase in Americans renouncing, which is crazy because you have so many people who really dream about becoming an American, making an American, really following the American dream. And this is something that is dying out a bit. And it's actually crazy because I have had over 20 of my personal friends announce on their citizenship. Of course, they're going to buy passports in the Caribbean, or they're naturalizing in Portugal or Argentina, or they're getting European, let's say citizenship by descent. So there's different ways that they can get passports and stuff like this. And then because you need a passport in order to renounce, which is crazy. Me personally, that's not something I'm planning on doing, but I'm very empathetic towards a lot of my friends who have done that. And we got to really think about what kind of pressures, especially what kind of economic pressures, are really pushing Americans overseas. So healthcare is probably one of the biggest things, especially for me. If I ever want to see a doctor or I need a surgery or anything like that, most of the time I will just go to Mexico. It's easy to go to. Sometimes I've gone to Eastern Europe for various things. And it's just better. So even though I have health insurance here in the US, sometimes it's still cheaper just to fly overseas, get my work done, pay out of pocket, and just come back to the US because of how crazy high the healthcare is. And also for housing too. And I know brothers up north, so Canadian brothers are dealing with this even worse than Americans are. In some cases, of course, if you're in New York or San Francisco or anything like that, housing is going to be pretty high. But especially because of out of control inflation, it's made our essentials or everyday things, so food, healthcare, housing, all these things, almost twice as expensive than before COVID. Because before COVID, or actually during COVID, the Fed basically printed out so many dollars into existence. So I forget that percentage, like 40% more. I saw some numbers. The other day I saw 80% the dollars that are existed have been printed in the past few years. So things have just gone higher. And sure, wages can go higher, but that's not necessarily the case for all Americans. And a lot of asset prices have doubled, especially houses and Bitcoin, gold, and these kind of things. Actually, you guys will have to check, for all the gold bugs out there, like how high it's since 2020. But that's left a lot of people behind. So with these type of pressures, If I'm American and I'm only getting paid 60,000 a year, sometimes I'd rather just go live in Mexico where my dollar can be stretched a lot further. And speaking of Mexico, or the US, like, let's talk about safety. In my, basically where I live currently, I've seen a lot more homelessness. Things are getting, because of how expensive things are, people are getting kicked out of their homes. You have unsecured borders, so you have a lot of undocumented immigrants coming in. And of course, I don't want to get too political with that, but these people are hungry, they're tired, and so usually when people commit crimes, it's something that's done out of, let's say, desperation in a lot of cases. Like, they're just hungry. Of course, you'll get some people who want to do bad because they're bad people. And one thing that struck me because I used to live in Portugal, when I moved back to the U.S., and I remember watching CNN, and like, there was a school shooting that day, and we've become so desensitized towards things like that, because I feel like there's a school shooting here in the US, every single week. So if I'm a family and I have my children, the school system here in the US, do I really feel safe? Right. And we have these wars going on in the Middle East. Of course, you have Ukraine and Russia, the potential conflict between China and Taiwan. Some will argue that we're already dealing with World War III, but it's not necessarily like so hot. It's not at our borders. But when you get into a situation where you just have a U.S. passport, you got to realize that half the world hates us and half the world likes us. And so if you have a second passport, let's say you go down to Argentina and do the Argentina Residency by Experience program that we launched. There's a video on that. Or you go to Brazil, or you get a Mexican passport, or you get European citizenship by descent. You get that second passport and you travel with that second passport. That's not going to carry the type of weight that a U.S. passport is, good and bad. And speaking of that, I was in the U.S. during the time of the election, so it's almost the time that Trump's going to be, sworn into office here. So the election is done now, but during the election, I really noticed that we lived in a divided nation. So even though I'm personally not on any side, I can personally, care less. I'm politically homeless. My family, even my own family and friends, were just divided, on the right and on the left. And I just didn't really fit in on either side. And because you have this situation, we've had such an erosion of freedoms, So after 9/11, we had the Patriot Act. So a lot of our privacy has been eroded. And there's more and more laws and regulations that is really taking away privacy, really taking away economic freedom, and these kind of things. And it's something that happens very slowly, but it's something that the older I get, the more it's starting to affect me in a worse and worse way, the more I stay here. So, and when you move overseas, sometimes the grass is greener. Of course, you will hear terms about the grass is green where you water it, but sometimes in some areas the grass will grow faster and more thick. So, if I'm living overseas, and especially, me being an American, I make most of my money inside the US with US clients, I'm just going to have a superior lifestyle because the US dollar is currently number one. It is currently the reserve currency. So because of that, a lot of people do still want US dollars. So I have a better cost of living. Another nice thing is that depending on which country I'm living in, I can actually get great tax incentives. So if you're American, you could get a lot of tax reduction just by living overseas. If it's the foreign income earned exclusion, different ways to set up and stuff like that. And you can book a call with us and, we can talk about that. But there's ways that you could essentially get your taxes down to zero. You'll still have to file, but there's certain ways, there's certain things you can do to actually get your taxes down to zero. So if you decided that you want to move to a 0% jurisdiction, unlike the UAE, or even in places like Spain, there are different ways that you can organize your taxes where there's some advantages. Like, there's always ways in the tax code that rich are using, to pay, lower taxes and stuff like that. And and let's just talk about geopolitical safety. If I go through the residency by experience program in Argentina that I talked about earlier, and I become Argentinian and I'm living down there in Patagonia on my farm and homesteading with my family, if World War III ever really breaks out, no one is coming to bomb Argentina. No one's coming to bomb Mexico. No one's coming to Colombia. So you got to think about, if there's some kind of geopolitical issues going on, where can I be that's safe? Where can I take my family, to be where like we're safe and where I can build a nice, beautiful life. Thanks, guys. You'll see me on more videos and start your journey freedom today with Perpetual. Thanks, guys. Bye.